And we're live. Okay. So thanks, guys, for joining me tonight. I know it's been a hectic week and a half or so as we kind of put these meetings together. So, hopefully we can make continue to make some good progress tonight as we did in the last two meetings. So really just wanted to make sure that everybody understood the purpose of today's meeting is just to narrow down the proposals we talked about the last time and hopefully come to one idea that we're going to present and work up as a PowerPoint presentation for Fred and Carrie. But before we really get into the nuts and bolts, I just thought maybe, Pete, you could go ahead and bring out the norms that we had discussed in the first meeting, make sure we have those fresh in our minds before we get started.
Sure, no problem, Tom. I got them right here, prepared on time. So, when to begin, first norm was set a clear agenda. Second, no sidebar conversations. Everyone must contribute. The need to communicate together and not just to the leader was number 4. Hear all ideas and bring them up for consensus decision. Number 5. Number 6, Jason and I do not dominate conversations. Everyone should be punctual to our meeting. Check. Park non-pertinent information. And then we should use reflective listening. And then finally, maintain a professional but fun atmosphere.
Thank you very much. So anything anyone could object to in that list, or anything that you guys feel we need to add to the list since we put that together?
No, I think they still stand true.
Okay.
That works.
All right, as long as it works for everybody. So as I pointed out in the agenda that I sent out a little while ago, I think it's good for us to also review the guidelines that were given to us as far as what the solution needed to include. And so the first thing really was that the budget needed to stay within that $38,000 mark, and it needed to be able to be implemented pretty quickly. The other big thing was that we sit down and review just those suggestions so we kind of stay on track. So Jason, if you could just kind of refresh for us the highlights of some of the suggestions we did last meeting.
Sure, absolutely. So basically the factors that we had figured out were capacity and seating becoming limited, causing a loud and chaotic environment, parking issues, and food and beverage lines, as well as timely laundry removal. Some of the solutions for capacity that we came up with: limit time in the shop for the patrons, limit free Wi-Fi, time limit, ergonomic changes, and then for the parking, shuttle service, lease an additional lot, existing customer incentive program, and then for food and beverages, a vibrating alarm for when the laundry cycle completes, order ahead via mobile app, online, and prepackaged food items exploration. Those were that's the summary of what we came up with.
Okay. So as we start going through that, okay, sorry, I had a little bit of feedback there. So as we start going through the list tonight, we're really going to try and focus in on just one of those topics that we think is really going to make the biggest impact to the customer base. Remember, the complaint was that people were unhappy with the way the buildings become crowded, and it's the length of time it takes to be served. So if we focus in on that, maybe we can really focus in on a good solution. The last piece of business that I really thought we should talk about is just what consensus really means. The point here is really that we don't all have to agree 100% and be all thumbs up with any or all of the solutions. We really want to make sure, though, that it's something that we all feel makes a positive impact as we move forward. So, if we can see each other's points as we go along and come to some sort of middle ground, that's ultimately what our goal is today. Does anybody have any concerns in regards to that?
I'm good, Tom. That sounds great.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm good.
great. So why don't we get into the nuts and bolts of it? So what was the first solution that you had on the list again, Jason?
So I'll just go by solutions and not factors. So limiting time in the shop.
Okay. So what was one of the suggestions that we had put in to limit the time?
Setting up some time limit for free Wi-Fi. Additional time of Wi-Fi obviously would require payment. It would force people to leave the shop and not just sit there and soak up the free Wi-Fi. If you have to pay for it, you're less likely to stay. That was one of the suggestions.
Yeah. And don't mind me if I'm looking to the side of just kind of writing notes as we go so I don't forget any of this.
That's all right. I'm looking to the side as I read the memo. I have it up.
So Jason, why don't you tell me a little bit about how you feel about that suggestion?
I think it would help to limit Wi-Fi abusers. You would run risk with your laundry crowd, as they wouldn't be able to use Wi-Fi while waiting for their laundry. But maybe you don't want them sitting there waiting. Maybe you want them coming and going. So, I like it if we come up with a reasonable time of free Wi-Fi so that we don't alienate everybody.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. Where I think you had mentioned something about an hour with that time frame.
I did.
I was thinking more along the lines of 3 hours. But as Pete pointed out last week in the feedback, yeah, that might even still be a little bit too stringent. So Pete, what's your thoughts as to what would be a reasonable time?
Well, I think, if we know the loads are 20 minutes apart from each other, and if we're having lunch and we're doing this other stuff, there is going to be some delays there. So I think at one point we talked about using like a paging system like they do at restaurants to kind of minimize the wait times in between the loads. And maybe that's the compromise between the two solutions. Maybe we already have like a consensus here of that's what we were going to do, and then kind of compromise with the time. Instead of setting a flat time on it, we leave it open, which is better for the customer experience, and yet we look to just make it so people are more aware of, hey, my laundry's done, and so they get in and out a little bit quicker.
Okay, but if you had to pick a time frame that you thought would be realistic as to how much we would limit Wi-Fi to, if we were to go down that path, what would you think would be a realistic time frame?
I think it'd be limited to the pounds of laundry that they bring in with them. Maybe there's a quick assessment and we hand them out a card based on how much they bring in. Right?
Okay. So if they bring in 5 pounds at 20 minutes a load, then you're saying somewhere in the meantime of what, 100 minutes?
Something along that line. Yeah, that sounds about reasonable.
Okay. What were you going to say, Jason?
I was thinking, look at it a different way. What if you take that alarm similar to the restaurant business, but if they have one that you can not only sync to laundry, but you can sync to the Wi-Fi as well. So as your laundry is going, when your load is done and that vibrator goes off, that's when your free Wi-Fi ends. And then for any other patron that's going in there for food or drink, they get a 1 hour limit. So therefore, you're not alienating customers that have laundry, and you're forcing them to get their laundry faster, or else they have to pay for Wi-Fi. But that it might come across as a negative, but throwing it out there just to see. And then you can use a separate standard with the same system for your food and beverage customers.
So we seem to keep going back to the buzzer thing that we had discussed. And I know that's farther down our list of solutions. Let's talk about that a little bit more right now then. Does everyone feel the buzzer idea warrants investigation?
I think that's probably one of the best solutions that we've come up with. It may have a little bit of cost to it, but there is some branding opportunity on those little devices too. That if we do allow them to work in the general area, because it is, there is a lot of companies right around the area. So maybe, that is a branding thing that people see them with it and they start asking questions about what's going on, and it also will lead to the fact that people will recognize that we're busy and hey, maybe there's something they should take a look at.
Not a bad point. Jason?
I just like it from the basically the standpoint from the customer's perspective. I don't have to sit there and wait in line. I can put my clothes in, I can leave. It vibrates, I come back. I'm waiting for food, same thing. It allows them to know when what they're looking to do is done, so they can move on to the next thing. They don't have to wait in the lines. Everybody doesn't like people. You get into a crowded thing. It lets you get out of there and do something else while waiting, which I think anytime you can do that is a positive. But also, if we can tie other things to it, it would help to enforce a little bit of that as well. I think there's a lot of value to it, depending how much they can do.
Okay. So, of the list that Jason read off before, does everybody think that the buzzers has the most potential for us?
I agree that seems to be the best solution here.
Okay.
I do, and my reasoning for it is I think you address all three factors with it. The parking being limited, you can address that if somebody drives in, drops their laundry off, jumps back in their car and leaves with the buzzer. Depending how far they can go. It is a city. It also helps with the food lines because you can come and go if you can tie it in with the food orders, as well as helping with the capacity and the laundry services. So I think it actually touches on all the factors that we had laid out. It's one of the few that does that.
So do you guys have any concerns as to it possibly creating a longer wait time for machines? So for instance, Jason, you keep mentioning leaving the facility to go do other errands. Could that potentially then cause the machine wait times to be longer because people aren't back when they should be?
Yes, unless we put some form of monetary control on how long that creates the wait time. You've been alerted. There's an opportunity there to say, you have 15 minutes, you have 30 minutes. And if you don't, then you pay X per minute or something to that extent.
I mean, the other thing I think would be a little bit more customer friendly might be just picking up and just saying if an employee has to come over and remove your laundry for you, then there's a surcharge attached to it. And, we can't guarantee that anything's going to be, or we move it into our folding service, and it's automatically charged, if you go 10 minutes past when the buzzer goes off or whatever the time frame may be. What do you think about that?
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that solves the only concern I really had about the buzzer. So.
I'm just trying to, is that all in line with our mission, do you think?
I do, because it allows a relaxed, comfortable. You come in, there's no stress. You take a buzzer, you do your thing, whatever. Buzzer goes off, you're done. It's not meant to add any stress, which is our whole kind of goal.
So, what if we tied in the buzzer instead of actually having a buzzer? What if we tied in an app that actually did that? So if the devices were monitored over the internet and then sent out to the app the remaining wait time on their device of how long that load will continue to take, could that potentially act as the buzzer?
Yep. I think you could even have it do a notification. You could have similar to what pizza companies do now. If you order online, they give you a little time limit as to when it'll be there. It's cooking, it's ready, it's arrived. We could do something like that. It's wash, rinse, spin, complete, and then have it send a notification your load's complete. I think absolutely you could tie that. You could even tie the Wi-Fi limits into that. I mean, you could do anything with that. And it'd probably be cheaper than buying alarms that'll do everything we're looking for them to do. What do you think, Pete?
I think it makes in the internet they have devices that can send out information from the basically electrical outlet too, so we could just do it based off of the draw, so there's no new technology needed there. It's just whether it's pulling the energy at the time that the wash machine's running or not. So I think the engineering costs to have something like that built, if it doesn't already exist, which I'm sure we could find a pre-made solution, may make sense. We could just monitor that feedback from a web service or something along that line from a development side point, pull it into our app, and then just notify them through it. So I think it makes total sense from a technical standpoint.
So the other benefit that you guys had mentioned, though, was branding. By having those buzzers in hand, that it would create more of awareness of what of the company brand. Do you think we lose any value from that by going to an app-based solution versus an actual device?
Well, I think like the handheld one, Jason, I don't know if you want to take it, but I mean, my idea is that if you're going to brand one thing, you could brand the other one. So, people could just talk about, how it's a smart laundry service. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it opens up advertising as well as other avenues, trials, that you can't do. You have limits with the physical space, but you throw it out on the internet. Hey, here's a, free trial load to try our app and stuff like that. Drum up business.
Okay.
I was going to, we just did the estimate for our website and our project too, which was going to come out around $8,000. So maybe we could tie this development in for a little additional add-on, seeing as we already have a group working on it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I was thinking also that it might open up opportunities for some of the partnerships we have going for the food to brand their name as well through that. So there's definitely ways we could go with utilizing the technology and still leveraging the advertising functions of it. So
now, one of the things we wanted to ask you, seeing is that some of the call outs from our notification about the problem was that some of our VIP customers were still being impacted. Do we think that solves for the VIP issue, or do we want to discuss the special parking situation for those customers, just to put an immediate Band-Aid on something that, is definitely causing some pain for our most faithful customers?
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say, I think the mandate was that we come up with a single solution. And I think by reducing wait time, it reduces the parking concerns. So I think it's a double win in that regard. But what were you going to say, Jason?
Similar thing. I was also going to say by doing it in an app format, we would be able to do something similar for customers that way as well. Some form of an incentive or something.
The other thing that we might have opportunity here for is if we're going to build an app, is to link it with the Square system we use for POS, so that we could also have them order food ahead of time. So, what's your thought on that, Pete?
I think it's great. I think that solves for that thing. It clarifies our idea, and I think we're driving down, I think we've just kind of basically, whether we realized it or not, just kind of ranked these ideas, and now we have a sub-rank of how we can implement this this particular solution. So I think we're starting to come to like really a final conclusion here, or a consensus. What do you think?
I agree. I think the only thing we have to work out now is how does it implement, right? Um, so obviously we'd have to drum up um, some knowledge of the app once we have it developed. Obviously, the first step is getting it in production, but then having some advertising in the store to promote it. Perhaps I think Jason mentioned some email advertising that we could do with customers to try and generate even social media, right? To generate more awareness of the app. Might be able to
Yeah, do
improve things.
have an incentive. Take a picture using our app and post it on your social media, and we'll give you a free soda or a free coffee or something like that. So we can do promotional programs like that to get it out to the public.
Social media
Works.
I mean,
okay.
I agree. I think the app is the most efficient way to go, as well as probably the best way to go for the customer base and just for growth and all that. I think it'll also be the most affordable. So I think it hits all the criteria.
Well, so what do you guys think it would take to actually implement this?
Timeline wise, without a pre-made option, maybe I don't know, three. Pete, you're more of the programmer. How long would it take you to pull something like that together?
If we can find something that's tied into a pre-existing online API, like through Google or Amazon or Microsoft, and do this, then we're talking about a month. If we don't find any hardware that's already tied into that we can't kind of link into this type of system, and we're gonna have to do some other development, I think you're looking at a 6-month turnaround for something like that to be, if you're going to be working with a reputable team, and because you're going to have to do some testing in that process too. So you probably could have something staged within 90 days, I'm guessing, but a final product within, 6 months.
So 90 days to 6 months. We could probably stage some beta testing in there too, don't you think, Pete?
I
We
do. I
might
think
get
there would be some simple steps, that you could do with some limited development, a reduced GUI that, doesn't have much branding on it. You
right.
can definitely get something off the ground.
And then there's obviously you could do a staged launch too, right? Where you launch it to Apple devices or Android devices first, and then come up with the reciprocal app later, right?
Makes sense.
Staged, staggered. Okay. What about money wise? What do we think a developer would even cost for that amount of time?
That's a good question.
It depends if we do it offshore, we do it onshore. There's going to be definitely a reasonable cost difference between them. So you typically, when you offshore accounts through a coding website, you're going to bid this out, and then you're going to get an estimate back, ranging in price. I would guess, offshore, you're talking anywhere between 5,000 and 15,000, and onshore, you're probably looking at, somewhere around, for the API development and all that, probably 30 to 60,000. I'm going to just throw that out there as a ballpark. So it would still be within the budget to have it done onshore, but you may save some money. But there's always the challenges of that we go through with culture shock, and working with teams. So if we want to expedite it, it may spend an extra money to get this done. Seeing as we have a pretty good budget to solve for this problem, maybe we take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think like it sounds like we're at least within the ballpark of where we need to be, without some further deeper dive investigations as to all the exact quotations. It's probably safe to say at least it's an option, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think the time limit's not that bad, and the price could be very reasonable.
Okay. Um, so is this a solution that we want to move forward with?
I believe it is. I think that we're going to want to also consider our marketing mix and our rebranding opportunity here when we do this. So we're going to want to bring that back and discuss that, because I mean we're going to be adding a lot of value at the same time to our customer base, you know, and we may be able to hit a larger market by doing this too. So this will be you know, just a force multiplier when it comes to getting this out to our customer base. So I think we want to take advantage of that with the remaining money, if we have any, you know, to get that message out.
No, that's definitely a good point. So we probably want to factor in at least five to $10,000 of the budget towards advertising. Then, right?
Absolutely. You know, I think the design will be tied into the website anyhow. So we'll have the online landing site, which has already been re-optimized. Then we're going to be taking this, and it may be just updating, you know, we're doing a radio spot on a local channel or something like that, again, to let them know now that they can schedule their laundry, you know.
Yep. So if we went the offshore option, uh, assuming that we can, based on the inner connections we need for the POS system, and then and set aside money for the advertising budget, and did some low cost advertising options, as Pete just mentioned. Um, do we think we'd really be in the right market as far as being able to move this into production?
For that budget, you could definitely do it. You know, I don't foresee it. I mean, even, you know, if we're outsourcing in some hardware manufacturing based off of what I'm seeing here for um, you know, what we're going to need for, you know, basically a small little PC, which we can build now for less than a couple $100, you know, per outlet. And I think if we bought in bulk, we could get it way down. So I think we could definitely get this done really within this budget, no problem.
Okay.
I agree. I think it's reasonable.
Okay. Anything you guys think we've overlooked as far as implementation steps? So we talked a little bit about branding. We talked a little bit about um, obviously staging the program. We've talked about how we're going to have somebody go ahead and design the software program, and then creating some advertising budget around it, and then rolling that as a rebranding marketing effort. Um, Anything that we've kind of missed?
You know, I was one last thing I'll throw out there, and I said it, and and the more I thought about it, I think we should include it. Part of this app should be a scheduler, that you could actually schedule the machine. You know, maybe for like you do at the movie, if you reserve your seats, they charge you a little bit more money for that. But for our customers that just absolutely have to have the machines at certain times, maybe you charge a little bit more of a premium to guarantee them those machines during a certain time frame, and we block them off for them.
Yeah, a reservation system sounds perfect.
You know.
I like it.
Cool. Okay, so as we move forward here, I think we have a really good plan in place. Now we just have to figure out how we're going to create the PowerPoint presentation to pitch this, right?
Yeah, that's a little bit more difficult, huh? You want to, because we just went down about 7 different avenues with one basic solution. So I think ultimately for the PowerPoint, you just want to focus on the basic solution and expand out from there, but don't go too much because you're going to lose what the main focus is in the minutia of all the engineering.
So PowerPoint should probably have like a introduction of what the problem is, focus on the solution at hand that we're presenting, and then list out some of the benefits, but not get really covered in detail. Is that what you're saying?
So my thought, and Pete, feel free to jump in. My thought would be start with a problem statement, move into a summary of the solution, basically high level. Here's the solution that we propose, setting up a web app, and then break down from there. So then it would be the web app will focus on the laundry times because that's the main focus of it. And then when you put added benefits, just a quick dot with a cliff note version of like could also lead to incentive program, could also lead to, you know, I wouldn't get too bogged down into that stuff and just kind of stay on the laundry machine time alarm focus of the app.
I think you're right. We start off with a tier approach. We offer up a tier approach to get this launched. And then if we have a tiered approach, then the development's easier. We can stage it in individual. If we find a contractor we're good with, we could stage it, you know, in different sections, and we can launch it out. And then we can also sell our owners on basically the thought that by doing it in this approach, that they could actually improve their, you know, their market size. You know, so I think that this solves for the problem that we have at hand, right? By making sure we're getting people in and out. It expands on the product by offering a new service on top of a new sandwich offerings and dinner options. And then on top of that, you know, we're going to come out with this, and we're going to be able to hit up a marketing team and say, this is really, you know, the new us. And we heard your feedback, and we're grounded in our community, and we're going to fix this. And not only are we going to fix it, we're going to make it better.
Sounds good. So just make sure I've got everything here. I just wrote down, we started out talking about a little bit of time limits. We switched to the buzzer solution, and ultimately we kind of settled in on the app to notify customers of in a customer-friendly way that their time's running up, right? We're not kicking people off of Wi-Fi, but we're trying to expedite the process. We talked about creating a surcharge option so that if they don't pick up their load within 10 minutes, we automatically do a fold service for them, and that way we're clearing out the machines in a timely way, but we're still generating a little bit of revenue to offset that additional labor. And then obviously, you know, having branding opportunities to add food orders into the application, launching it with like a 60-day to a 6-month type of time frame. I'm sorry, 90 days versus to 6 months. Staggering approach to, as we finish one piece of development, we launch and just keep adding in layers or adding in product offerings, right? Versus different iOSs or Android systems. Then we talked a little bit about the budget being right around that $38,000 for both advertising and development, and then opportunities to create scheduling functions or reservation system within the app, and additional marketing opportunities. Did I miss anything for anyone?
I don't think so.
I think you got it all. I think that we may even ask for a larger budget if we're going to bring in revenue while we're doing this, right? After the staging, so we may have a larger advertising budget, you know, if they understand where we're going with this.
I think if we show the proof of concept and we solve the initial problem, I think there's definitely opportunity to go back and show the added value that we're also bringing as well. So perhaps continue to expand on it. Definitely. I think you're right on target there, Pete.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, so why don't I go ahead and I'll take a stab at the outline of the PowerPoint presentation that we talked about, where it's just introducing the initial problem, introducing our proposed solution, and then listing out some of the benefits. And then I'll shoot that guy off to you guys in the next day or so, and you just email me back with some of the feedback. How's that?
Sounds good to me.
Works. I think that's a consensus.
Perfect. All right. I appreciate your time tonight, guys.
All right. Thanks.
See you.